All right, back in the studio here, Harvey Ferdman is the policy advisor for Representative Bill Otto, and Dawn Chapman is what's your concerned citizen?
Yeah,
right?
just a mom that
Just a mom
lives there.
lives in Bridgeton. Talking about the Bridgeton landfill and that nuclear waste dump. One's on fire, or both's on fire, or one's next to one that's on fire. Harvey, there was a Wall Street Journal story that came out over the weekend that said basically, well, you tell us what it said. That the EPA, the story is that an unnamed source said that the EPA is downplaying or not telling the full story when it comes to this landfill.
Yes, apparently this has to do with the EPA Superfund in particular. The Superfund process is broken. I've said that a number of times.
Right.
And this is another example. In 1996, they formed the National Remedy Review Board to oversee the Superfund process because they were having some problems. And one of the original members of that board from its formation went on record with the Wall Street Journal saying that data was either suppressed or changed in order to put pressure on the Remedy Review Board to come to the conclusions that the EPA wanted them to come to. Superfund is broken, and it's unfortunately having a very negative effect on this community in regards to the Westlake landfill and the Bridgeton landfill.
Okay, the EPA has said what? They came out 2 years ago or so and said it's not that big of a deal. Don't worry about it, right?
They continue to say that today. Region 7 continues to say that it's not that big a deal, and everyone else who's looked at it says, oh, yes, it is.
Right. Why is it a big deal? Because they don't know where the nuclear waste is in the dump, right? It could be leaching. It could be getting into groundwater. Have we concluded that yet?
Well, their own data shows that it's in the groundwater. Now, the question is it in the groundwater off-site? And unfortunately, the only way you're going to know that is if you do off-site testing. And independent consultants that we've had come in and look at it are absolutely stunned that there's no off-site testing that's been done.
What does the EPA say when we ask them those questions?
That they're working on it, and that all of these things will be taken into consideration in their final decision, which is really not. It's a non-answer. It's a put-off answer.
Recently, Ann Wagner, Congresswoman Ann Wagner, Congressman Lacey Clay, Senators Caskell and Blunt all wrote a letter saying we want it out of the EPA's hands. What does that mean?
Yes. We've been lobbying them very heavily for moving it to the Army Corps of Engineers under a program called FUSRAP, which is chartered with cleaning up the World War II nuclear bomb waste from across the country. We are one of, I believe, 350 sites that has that waste in it. However, we're probably the most daunting of all those sites.
Is there another site in the country that has a nuclear waste site next to a burning landfill?
Not that we're aware of.
There are, though, nuclear sites exactly like this nuclear waste dump in Bridgeton that they have moved and or remediated, correct?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Weldon Springs, right in our own backyard. When you go out on Route 94 and look behind the high school there, you see what looks like a pyramid with the top cut off. That's 1.4 million cubic yards of this very same nuclear waste.
Who can?
How does that make you feel?
It's mind-boggling.
It really is. Who can trump the EPA? Who can go over their heads so someone
question.
else can be in charge of this?
Congress, our congressional delegation. And that's why it was so important when they came out. Because of the current budget cycles and all of the sequesters and all that things,
right.
all those things that are going on, it's very difficult for them to go through an appropriations process to actually move it over officially. So what they've done is written a letter to EPA asking them to contract the FUSRAP folks, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, to remediate this site, to do the investigation, figure out what really needs to be done, do it objectively, and then do the work. We're waiting to hear back if that is going to be successfully negotiated. But it still leaves the EPA in charge. With this latest revelation, we're now looking once again, to have Congress actually move it over to the FUSRAP program. Don't do it as a contractor. Do it directly under FUSRAP, like all the other sites in St. Louis and around the country have been done. This is the only one that's like this.
Is that what has been the fallout from this Wall Street Journal article? Is that it's now people are now awake to this? Or what has this article done?
Well, I think I'll let Dawn answer that one.
Dawn, go ahead.
The community's furious. I mean, we've been betrayed on a very, very high level with our own EPA. We knew Region 7 had some issues, obviously, and we've been fighting. And we knew the National Remedy and Review Board had the record of decision and was reviewing it. And, we've been spending hours finding documents and stuff, sending them to them, thinking, what, as long as they get what they need, the groundwater, et cetera, these people are charged to be independent, to look this over, and to make a decision. They've got our backs, they've got the best interest of the community at heart, and they're going to make the right decision. And then to find out that this happened, it taints everything that comes out of EPA at this point until there's an investigation. So if they come back with a record of decision, how do you know that it's not tainted?
You've lived in the neighborhood how long?
About 8 years.
When you bought that house, did you know the landfill was on fire? Did you know there was a nuclear waste dump next to the area?
No, they don't disclose it when you live next to nuclear weapons waste, unfortunately.
Right. If you knew that at that time, would you have purchased that house?
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
How's the smell been? We've heard that the smell has gotten worse over the winter.
It's been worse than it's ever been before, and that's what we're wondering why. Why is it suddenly worse? Back in June, they moved some of the residents within a mile. They gave them the option to go and stay in a hotel room because the smell was so bad when they were doing a project. It's worse now. So if it was to the point where you needed to move them then, what's different about now?
Right. Who did that? Republic or did the EPA or who
that was
them?
an agreement, I believe, between Republic and the Attorney General.
The Attorney General
Yes.
Arranged it and Republic paid for it.
Yeah.
Has anybody done any testing on the air?
Yes,
Yes.
there are air monitors that surround it. There's nothing at an acute level, which means if you breathe it in, you're not going to fall over next week. There's nothing like that coming out, but there's plenty coming out on what we feel is a chronic level, which is a lower level, but we've been exposed to it for a long, continuous amount of time.
Right. Yeah.
That's being studied by the State Department of Health and Human Services.
Gotcha. There's an argument between the state, the city, and the federal. What can the state do going forward, or what would you like the state to do going forward?
Well, the state actually could declare like an emergency action and then actually fund starting to do the removal, which I'm not advocating at this time. This is going to be a very expensive and timely effort. The state can continue to put pressure on our congressional delegation and other members of Congress to move this over and do the right thing.
So the federal government really, if they wanted to, the Congress could pass a law that says clean it up and clean it up now.
Yes.
I mean, that would basically end this. It'd be done. Appropriate the money to get it fixed.
Yeah, appropriate the money to have an objective evaluation done, not paid for by a commercial entity, paid for by our government and billed to the commercial entity,
Right.
which is different.
Right.
And using our contractors, using our government people, are the best of our best to figure out what is the right solution for that site. It's
Yeah.
a very complicated site.
Harvey Ferdman with us and Don Chapman with us. One more question, and I know we're going over time. It seems to me like the people of Bridgeton and the area this is topic every day, 1A every day, right?
Right.
It seems like if you don't live in Bridgeton, you don't care about this. Would you agree with that?
There are times when it definitely feels that way, yes.
Yeah. Whereas it's not just happening in Bridgeton. If these two things ever connect, the nuclear waste with the fire and the water and the groundwater, that affects everybody. Am I right in that?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And think about how horrible it would be if that happened during a severe thunderstorm with these winds. Look at today. If that stuff got in the atmosphere today, I don't even want to think about how widespread it would be.
Right. So these people who live outside of Bridgeton who say, I don't care, it doesn't affect me, it most certainly does affect them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Harvey Ferdman, Don Chapman. Don, where can people go and get more information?
Westlake Landfill Facebook page and stlradwastelegacy.com.
Unbelievable. Harvey and Don, guys, thanks for coming in. Thanks for breaking it down and making sense out of it, too. 7:32 here, Big 550 KT.